Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I want to show you what I did with a bunch of my scraps. If you're a quilter or you like to sew, it's really easy to come up with a lot of scraps. So what I like to do is have all my colors in different little piles. And there was some I wanted and some I didn't. So here I'm just going to sort through and grab the ones that I think would be great for a quilt. Then once you get everything sorted, you want to start cutting them into 1¼ inch strips. This works great if you have a jelly roll because that's 2½ inches and you just cut it right down the middle and you're all ready to go to use that scrap. It doesn't matter what size the scraps are that you're cutting because you will need all different sizes, and if one doesn't fit, you could sew it together. Check this out. This is a great way to keep everything organized next to your sewing machine. I really like doing it this way, and you want to mix them up because you want to make sure, or at least I didn't want to have two colors real close together. And here I'm going to be using some copy paper. It's just thin enough to work real well. I think I remember hearing or reading, didn't they back in the old days use newspaper for this because it was thin? I might be wrong about that, but if you know anything about it, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. I start out by making an 8½ inch square. You might have to play around with your machine to see which one works the best, but I found that the smaller the stitch, the easier the paper tore off. Right here I want to line these two corners up, and then you're going to want to put your ruler right in the middle there. Line it up right in the middle and draw a line on each side. And now here I'm also going to line it up because what I want to do is just draw some lines just to help me keep the fabric going in the right direction. You just want to keep adding your pieces until you fill in the whole section. This project you need to finger press or iron, but I have this clover tool that I bought probably a year ago that I'm finally going to get to use. I probably should have been using this a long time ago because watch how this pushes the seam down. It's just so handy. If you're interested in this, I'll leave a link to it in the description box. And then you just want to turn the black over and trim off the edges. To help me see where my lines were on the other side, I just redrew the lines. I realigned up the ruler and just put the lines back. That way what I want to do is pull the paper back because I want to trim the edge off. I am aiming for about 1/4 of an inch. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I just want to pull back some of that paper off of the fabric, and so I can get a nice clean line. It's also a good idea just to have a little basket sitting next to where you're working so you can just throw your little scraps away. I like to keep it organized as you go. If you don't, this can get pretty messy. Now you want to add on a block to fill in the remaining piece there. I like to live dangerously and just randomly cut. You could measure, do all the things, do what works for you. I like to live on the edge. And once again, I'm lining it up. I'm going to run some chalk on where I'd like to sew. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's all going to be trimmed off anyway, but I like to come close. This is the best part about quilting. Look how crazy this block looks. And with just evening it up with a ruler, takes all that away just that fast. Makes it look really hard when it's really not that hard. I really enjoyed this part, I think because it was something different. You could just make all your blocks ahead and while you're watching TV just sit and pull the papers off. They come off pretty easy. If you find that they're pulling hard, you're going to want to shorten your stitch. And just like that, the problem goes away. I really like how this is using up all my scraps. They just sit there and wait for a project, but sometimes it's hard to find just the perfect project. And this you could do so many different ways. You could do so many different colors. And then I just like to double check, make sure there's no long edges hanging over. But each block should come out to a perfect 8.5 inches. It was easier to do this on my floor. It's kind of fun to spin them around and see which blocks go well with which, like each corner, figuring out exactly how you want it to finally be. I really like the look of a white border. I feel like it takes a lot of the hard work out of quilting. That way you don't see the points if they don't line up just right. This kind of gives you a buffer. I am using 2.5 inch strips. I tend to always go to that for some reason, but you could definitely do wider. To make the quilt bigger, you could use different colors. That's the fun part, the part where you get to design it. And then you just want to line it up and sew it down. I really like how this turned out. It was so much fun and I used up a lot of scraps. And now I'm just going to put the quilt together. The way I like to quilt it is to kind of anchor it down with the big squares when I first start. Then once I get it anchored down, I'll draw the lines. Every 3 inches, I'm going to put a chalk mark, and that's where I will sew to quilt it. I really like how this turned out. You know, you can make placemats. There's so many different things you can make using this design. Thank you so much for watching.